we are going to uncover a very interesting part, the spiritual component of this island. So one day when the priest kept the offering aside and went to have a bath and came back, he saw the sweets and the other food had been eaten by someone. If you do not understand why you do that, what is the purpose of your action, you will simply become a blind follower. Why do you suffer in the mind in the present moment? How many emotions can you calculate? Now, what happens when you use something, or when you do something, or when you sit for an exam without knowing the subject? So, very good morning. So, how was your tour so far in Sri Lanka? Thank you very much for coming and visiting us. Well, there were a couple of sessions within this week which I attended. Some of the members have had cancelled the tour because of the weather condition. But amidst all these things, so I have to give my regards to you for coming Sri Lanka, because you did not cancel. And did you visit the hill country? Did you visit Kandy?
Kandy, we visited Kandy.
Right. So there were certain parts of the country which was heavily affected by a cyclone, but most of the other areas, especially the coastal areas where the tourists are much fond of, is safe and sound. No worries at all. Now today, maybe these are the last few days of your tour in Sri Lanka. So I believe you might have experienced the beauty, the nature, the culture, most of the things about our country. And I heard that your friend Nishanta was explaining a lot about the healthcare system and the education system. But today, we are going to uncover a very interesting part, the spiritual component of this island. Right. And I heard that he was saying about certain precedence given to the spirituality in our country. I believe I heard he was saying that the first front seats were reserved for clergy, monks, and there is a tradition that people stand up before a monk or an elder comes. Those certain kind of priority is given. So here today we are going to investigate why such priority, or why such importance is given to the aspect of spirituality in Sri Lankan domain. Right. I will tell you a nice story. This is a Hindu story. It's not a Buddhist story. This has happened in a rural part in India. Every village in India has its own temple, Hindu temple. Hindu temples are different from the structure of a Buddhist temple, where they have the shrine room for the god, and in front of every shrine room there is a pond. In most of the cases it's like that, because before performing the rituals, whoever who performs the ritual is supposed to be hygienic. So he is supposed to dip himself and have a bath before entering the shrine room. So there was one priest. He had only one son, a little one. So this priest is the one who is taking care of that particular shrine. So his day goes like this. Every morning he prepares an offering with sweets and other food items and fruits, a basket, a casket of such things. He prepares the offering, and keep it on a side of the shrine, and he goes to the pond and have a bath and come back and place the offering before the shrine and do the chanting. That was his daily routine. So his son was also accompanied with him because he is the one who is going to be the next priest, the one next in line. So one day when the priest kept the offering aside and went to have a bath and came back, he saw the sweets and the other food had been eaten by someone. So he was curious, he couldn't search for the culprit. The next day he was watching what is happening. He saw a black cat is the culprit. While he was having the bath, the cat was enjoying the food. So what he did was, on the following day, he took a rope and caught the cat and tied the rope around his neck and tied it up to a pillar of the shrine. And thereafter he went to have the bath. So the son was observing this, what happens in the shrine room. So every day, because the cat was there now permanently, the priest had to tie the cat first before going to the bath, otherwise there won't be any offering left. After a while, the father died. The son had to take care of the duty. So he was doing the same because the cat was still there. He had to tie the cat to a pillar in the shrine room and to have a bath and come back and place the offering. So that was not the interesting part. Sometimes after the cat died, the son was in a mess. Now there is no cat to perform the ritual. He was searching all around the village for a black cat to tie it up in the shrine room before placing the offering. So he found a cat, took it to the shrine room, tied it up to a pillar, and then placed the offering on the side of and had a bath and came back and did the offering. Can you see what is happening here? If you do not understand why you do that, what is the purpose of your action, you will simply become a blind follower. I don't think I have to explain the scenario that happened there. Right? So there is a spiritual meaning for every action that we do here in Sri Lanka, where the priority is given and some recognition is given to those actions. But nowadays, people have forgotten the reason behind it. And you were supposed to remove your shoes in front of the hall. People think it is because we have to pay respect. No, it is not that. Temples, shrine rooms are public places. It's not a house. It is being used by thousands of people, not even hundreds, thousands of people. If thousands of people wear footwear into the hall, you cannot maintain the hygiene, the cleanliness of this hall. So it's very easy to ask somebody to remove the shoes and come. And if you go to an Islamic shrine, you are supposed to wash your feet as well. And as like in my story, they are supposed to have a bath before performing the rituals. So these are all done to maintain hygiene in a public area. And you know, in the Islamic culture, the women, they do wear the farda. They have to cover their entire face and the body. Why? Because that religion was developed in an area where sandstorms were very frequent. Very often there were sandstorms. So women had to protect their eyes. Even like today, they were very, they were very fragile. So they had to protect their eyes. That is why they are covering their face with a farda. It is not because of any other religious thing. So all these things had a reason at the beginning. But when time goes on, the philosophy is lost. Only the action remains. So if somebody does anything without knowing the reason of doing so, we call such events as a religious event, not a spiritual event. Why? They do not know why they do that, simply because it has been written on a script and been transferred from generation to generation, and they just follow it, considering it as a dogma. That's a religion. But here we are going through a spiritual path where investigation is the utmost important thing. The priority is given to inquiry. You have to question. Rather than becoming a blind follower. Are you clear? So Buddhism, it has a religious part as well, because some of the philosophy is lost now and hidden now and not freely available or not easily available to the public at large. Therefore, there is a religious part as well. But the Buddhist spirituality always encourages questioning. Questioning on what? That's the other important thing. Does it cover questioning all the materialistic things, all the things in the cosmos? Does it cover everything? No, it is not. In Buddhism, it talks about human suffering, and it shows a path to save people from suffering. But when we say suffering, suffering is twofold. The suffering can be a physical suffering and a mental suffering. The Buddhist philosophy has no use in physical suffering. For that, you have to go to a hospital. You have to meet a physician. There is no point of meeting Buddha, or there is no point of meeting a monk in order to get rid of your physical suffering. Can you see? The application of the Buddhist philosophy is limited only to the aspect of mental suffering. So as a Buddhist monk, when I ask you to inquire, there is no point of inquiring me on other things other than the mental component of human suffering. I may give an answer now. If you say I have a headache, I would say, from my experience and from my other worldly knowledge, okay, have a paracetamol. It doesn't come from the Buddhist philosophy. Even such questions were asked from Buddha. At his time, he has given some answers. But those answers did not based on his spiritual understanding. They were based on the common knowledge which was available to him at that time in India. So you have to mark your grounds, where you are playing, right? Because this is a very scientific process. In a scientific process, the most important thing is understanding your limits, your parameters. So our questioning, our inquiry applies to the mental suffering. Then the question happens, where does this mental suffering happens? In the mind, not on the body. So we are dealing only about the mind. Where does it happen? In the mind. When does it happen? The next most important question. When does it happen? When does the mental suffering happens? Does it happen in the past? Or would it happen in the future? Or is it always happening in the present moment? What do you think? Interestingly, mental suffering only happens in the present moment. That is why you may have heard this. The Buddhism always talk about this moment. The entire Buddhist knowledge, wisdom, philosophy applies only to the present moment. I am telling you why. Prevent you from asking the questions that you are waiting to ask from me. I heard in the bus that someone here is going to ask about the death. Who was that? The death happens in future. And one might ask me about what was before the birth. That was the past. Even if you ask that question from Gautam Buddha, he might have given you an answer based on the available knowledge at that time. But that was not based on, and that will not be based on, the Buddhist spiritual philosophy. If the answers only, the questions only about the present moment will be answered by the pure Buddhist spirituality without any external knowledge. So if you are, I will pose the question on behalf of you. If you question me on what happens after death, nobody knows. There are theories. In the Buddhist scripts, we talks about reincarnation. That's a theory. One might say, no, there is no reincarnation. There were people like that who did not believe in reincarnation and questioned Gautam Buddha about it, but he purely says, to apply my spiritual path, it doesn't matter whether you believe reincarnation or not. Why? Whether you have a birth after death has no application in regard of the suffering which you undergo in the present moment. The one who has a reincarnation or the one who does not have the reincarnation would, it doesn't matter, would suffer in the present moment. Why? All of us have a present moment. One might have a heaven, one might not have a heaven, but that's in the future. Irrespective of your belief on other things, everyone has one thing, the present moment. Then Buddha inquired himself, because his inquiry was first done by himself, within. He questioned, why do I suffer? Now we know the limits, the boundaries of Buddhist spirituality. Where does it happen? In the mind. When does it happen? In the present moment. And then he questioned, why does it happen? What do you think? Why do you suffer in the mind, in the present moment? Why? Come on, I need some answers.
Because you're thinking of the past or the future, worrying about the future.
Yes, one reason. Any more opinions? Why do we suffer in the mind, in the present moment?
Because we're not willing to let it go.
Not willing to let it go. Good. Desires. Good. Very good. Simply put, when Buddha inquired himself, he understood. He realized all those things. Your answers are right. Right? Those are branches of the main course. The main course for the effect of mental suffering, he realized we do not have a proper understanding about the mind. How does it work? We do not know how the mind works. That is why we are mentally suffering. Now, I will give you an example. If somebody does something which you dislike, you will go angry, right? So the anger happens, the effect of anger happens because of a cause. The cause and effect is there. Then why do you suffer with anger? Because you have not realized anger is an emotion which is natural. It's an effect to a particular cause. Since we have no idea or wrong ideas about our emotions, we are in a continuous struggle of keeping the good emotions within and relinquishing the bad emotions out. That is a pure misunderstanding. Because in the Buddhist philosophy, the Buddha had classified from his own research 52 different types of emotions. 52 different types of emotions. If I ask you to name your emotions, number your emotions, how many emotions can you calculate? He identified 52. Anger is one out of it. Right? And he, after classifying these 52, he labeled them as ultimate dharmas, paramartha dharma. That was the word he used. Ultimate dharmas means ultimate building blocks of making of the human mind. It's like atoms, neutrons and protons. In an atom you find neutrons and protons. Those are basic components, the building blocks of materials. Right? There is no way that you can get rid of it. That's the building block. So the mind is also a combination of different building blocks. So each emotion is a building block. He found 52 different building blocks. Not only that, there were some other blocks as well, which is beyond the parts of emotions. If you are really interested in studying that, you have to read Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma is the deep science in Buddhist spirituality. If you not know, I will quickly introduce that to you. Now, if you are willing to study the Buddhist philosophy in depth, there are 3 books. We call it Tripitaka. Pitaka means books, 3 means 3. 3 books, right? The one book is the sutras, the discourses of Buddha. And the second one is the Vinaya. Vinaya is the ethics and rules, the code of conduct of Buddhist monks. And the third one is the Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma is the deep science. The deep science which explains the classification of the chemistry of the mind. This deep classification of building blocks of the mind you will find in Abhidhamma Pitaka. Right? So what he said is, why we suffer mentally? Because we have not understood the mechanism of the mind. How does it work? Now, what happens when you use something, or when you do something, or when you sit for an exam without knowing the subject? Now, you have to face for an exam tomorrow. You have not studied anything at all, and you are given the paper. Won't you start to shiver? Won't you start to sweat? Haven't you had such experiences? You come across a question which you have not studied, which you have missed the lecture. What happens? We start to shiver, we start to sweat. We start to suffer. Why? We do not know the subject. And also, if I give you some cutting edge technology device, let's say even a new washing machine, right? not those older ones, the new version of it. If you do not know what this each option do, what will happen to the machine, and what will happen to your process, and what will happen to you, the one who is using the machine? You will damage the machine, and the process, the work will not be done. You cannot get done the work properly, and also the one who uses the machine can get hurt. That is what happening with you right now. The most sophisticated machine in the cosmos is not your smartphone, not AI. It is this. Artificial intelligence, the smartphones, all these things, satellites, rockets, everything was created by using this. This is the most sophisticated machine created by nature so far. Do you agree with that? So you are using the most sophisticated machine on earth for 50, 60, 70 years without what? Without knowing how to use it. So aren't you supposed to suffer? You are supposed to suffer. Aren't you supposed to hurt yourself? You are supposed to hurt yourself. And aren't you supposed to not get your work done properly? You are supposed to. That is why we are failing in our life. Life is the fundamental exam that everyone faces before death, in the present moment. And most of them do fail that exam. So we have to repeat it over and over again. The first partner, the first marriage is a failure. Then we go for the second marriage. That is the repeat exam. The first child is a failure. Then we go for the second child. That is the repeat exam. So Buddha realized this. And he found a way. There is no magic here. Simply just understand how your mind works. Thereafter you can properly use the machine. Once you know how to properly use the machine, you will not damage the machine. That means you won't get crazy and end up in a house for lunatics. And you can get your things done. You can get good results in your exam. And you will not hurt yourself. That is Buddhist spirituality. There is no magic there. For that you don't have to remove your shoes and come into the hall. For that you don't have to offer the first front seats in the bus. For that you don't have to have a black cat. Right? Then the next question. My inquiry is not yet over. Because Buddha's inquiry was not over. Now the next question which came to the mind, okay, I have to understand my mind. Then comes how? How do I understand my mind? We started from where? Where does the suffering happen? When does it happen? Why does it happen? Then, how do I understand the mind? There he uncovered this path. I think it is, this word is very much popular in the Western world. The mindfulness. We have to be mindful only to understand the mind. There is no other way. There is no other path. There is no other machine. There is no telescope. There is no microscope. There is no other test which you can do to understand the mind. Only path, only technique is being mindful. You are here for that. Simply by being mindful, we can discover the chemistry behind the mind. What does it mean? It means that we observe what happens in our mind in the present moment. With every event in our life, we observe the mind, what happens. If you are not mindful, you won't go within and see what happens with the event, you will simply struggle with the event. Right. Now let's say about today's lunch. Are you supposed to have it at the hotel? Okay. He was so quick to say that. Okay, let's think about another day where you are supposed to have the lunch at the hotel. But because of some other event, unforeseen event, the lunch is not prepared by the hotel. So when you go to the hotel, there is no buffet. What will happen? You will get upset. If you only deal with the event, now don't misunderstand me, I am not asking you to play like a fool and not to argue or not to challenge and strive for things to get done. No, you can scold the manager, you can scold and scream, whatever you can do. The event will happen. But even with the anger, even with your reaction, you can still be mindful what is happening within. Why do I get angry? Why do I feel this uncomfortableness? And why my body is reacting like this with this particular emotion? You question. Then only you can understand the mind. You understand? You should have that skill being developed, that mindfulness is a skill. You should have that skill where even with every event in your life, you have a side skill where your mind being automatically checked. There is a skill like that. So you can scold, you can laugh, you can enjoy. With every event, you still enjoy it, you still react, but from side, you are observing the mind. That is mindfulness. And there are different techniques which can help you to improve this skill. Everyone, all of us have mindfulness because it's again another building block of human mind. You can't get rid of it. It is there. It's like every one of us have biceps, right? But we don't have biceps like Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know whether he has it yet. I think maybe not. We do not have strong biceps. Why? We have not worked it out. So similarly, we have mindfulness, but it is not powerful enough to enable us to observe the mind in our day-to-day life. So we can do a certain exercise, incorporate a certain activity where we do some gymming. I call it the mind gym. We have to work it out. When we work it out, gradually the muscle builds up and makes our body stronger. When we have the strong built muscle, thereafter, we can lift any weight. We are capable of observing the mind. So my proposal is that to whoever who comes for my sessions, I ask them to invest at least 60 minutes daily. At what time? I ask them to do it early in the morning, right after they wake up. Why? If you pause upon it, you will never do that. But when you wake up early in the morning, the first thing if you do is investing on yourself, then there are no excuses for you to not to do it. So right after you wake up, don't even brush your teeth. Don't even wash your face. We have first 60 minutes. That 60 minutes we divide into 3 parts. 20, 20, 20. Right? The first 20 minutes we do some sort of a physical exercise. Some stretching, right? Okay? Or maybe depending on your health condition, right? A simply cardio exercise for 20 minutes. It's better if you sweat at the end, or maybe at least warm up your body. With the warm up, the next 20 minutes, you put an alarm place an alarm, keep it aside. Just sit somewhere comfortably, maybe on a chair or maybe cross legs on the floor, it doesn't matter, but don't stay in the sleeping posture, right? Gently close your eyes for 20 minutes without doing nothing. Observe what happens within, the thoughts which comes to the mind, the emotions which comes to the mind. And there are events where there won't be any thoughts, there won't be any emotions. You will just hear the bird calls and bodily sensations. Those three events will be visible when you observe the mind. You observe it for 20 minutes. So when the alarm goes off, you wake up from the meditation. Third part, the last 20 minutes, keep a diary. Put the date. Write down the thoughts, emotions and sensations which you observed within the 20 minutes of meditation in the diary. Journaling, exercise, meditation and journaling. Now, if you cannot invest 60 minutes at the inception, at least do for 30 minutes, 10 minutes exercise, 10 minutes meditation, 10 minutes journaling. What are you doing here? You are working out. Which muscle? Mindfulness muscle. That's all. If you do that investment for like 14 to 21 days at a stretch, you will start to feel the difference. Now thereafter you don't have to think forcefully about being mindful with events. Even in your day-to-day life, you see this quality developing. With every event, with every incident in your life, there is a part that you think about what's happened inside. That is the development of mindfulness. Do you understand? But for that, there is something which you have to do. So now, for some people, it might be difficult to do meditation, and there may be certain cases where some people take medication for anxiety or depression. For them also, the meditation will be difficult. For them, I do advise only do the exercise part. If you want, you can do exercise for 40 minutes. First 20 minutes plus the meditative 20 minutes. 40 minutes of exercise. Within the exercise also, you can observe the mind, the thoughts while you exercise, the talk in the mind, emotions which changes, and the bodily sensations. You can write it down at the latter part. In the journaling part, you can write down the thoughts, emotions and the sensations during the exercise. Right? So those are two techniques which will help you to develop mindfulness. But you have to understand, there are about 1,000 different, maybe even million different types of techniques which you can use to develop your mindfulness. But here, we have no time to uncover all those things. So these are few techniques which I described to you. So I believe now you have a proper understanding why we do this and how we do this. So there is no dogma here. And in order to make sure that it's not a dogma, that means that you are doing something which I prescribed, please, I need some questions from you now. Question me if you have any doubts and to get things clarified. Then again we will make sure this is a spiritual process, not a religious process. So do you have any questions for me?
Yes.
So if you're journaling, which I've never heard about in part of Buddhism, is that where it ends, or do you look at the journaling, do you share it with somebody? What do you do with the journaling?
Now, for the moment, if you have no group of people who engage in the same practice, there's no point of showing that journal to anybody else, right? Now, I will tell you now, I do conduct retreats, 4-day residential retreats monthly for the locals mainly. Now, there that we do this exercise and then they do the journaling. So, at the end of the day, we have a discussion. So, I go through the journals and see what is happening and are there any, and from reading the journaling I can see whether there are any misunderstanding about the practice and whether there are anything that I have to elaborate on the practice. That journaling would help a teacher to guide you, right? But if you do not have a teacher, don't worry, just keep it yourself, because best teacher is your own wisdom, right? Because I won't say that teaching has no use, but a teacher cannot do much in spirituality. It is you that you have to empower your own self. So let your mind to develop mindfulness. When you do those 3 actions, exercise, meditation and writing, the muscle will develop. That skill will automatically improve your wisdom. There is a magic, because that is how the mind works, right? But if you have a group, that report would be a good point to start a discussion. Are you clear?
Yeah, then I have another question. So, what if I'm tricking myself? What if, I'm tricking myself to believe I'm not angry about something? And I trick myself when I'm meditating, and then I trick myself when I'm writing about it as well. And I don't have somebody, either a teacher or a group, to discuss it with. How do I get past the tricking myself part?
Tricking, do you mean that you're writing a fake report?
I'm saying I'm not angry. When, probably in my heart I know I'm angry.
Well, at the beginning, you just let your mind trick, right? Don't worry, because if your mind is tricky and asking you to do tricky things, right, we are not supposed to force the mind to change. Now, if I ask you to not to write down the absolute truth, that won't happen, right? That's the difference between spirituality and religion. In religious scripts, religious dogmas, they will ask you to not to drink alcohol. But in spirituality, there are no limitations. It is by your own understanding you should drink or you should not drink. That's up to you. Now, if you trick yourself, if I say not to trick yourself, then it becomes a dogma. There's no point there. Because if I prescribe something like that, what will happen? For few days you will not trick, or few days you will not drink. After few days you will go back to drinking and tricking. Let the mind do it by its own. Just do it, write down whatever your mind says and see what happens later on, right? Because what is happening here is your clarity is developing. You are wiping your glasses. When you start to see the garbage within, you start to smell it very badly. Thereafter, you don't want to keep it inside. Now what has happened? Your clarity is less. You do not know about your hygiene. You do not know about the dirt inside. You are still keeping it because you do not know that it is garbage. Your past memories, right? And your guilty feelings, all those things are garbage. Not only anger, not only whatever other things. Your guilty feelings, past memories, future anxieties, all those things are garbage. But you are still holding it to it, right? Why? You can't smell it yet. It is not stinking enough. Why? Your olfactory sensation is not developed. But once it is developed, you can't keep it. So let it happen naturally. This has to be purely a natural process without any force at all. Because if you force it, that means it's a dogma. That means you are a follower. And dogmas won't work in this regard. It's a good question. Yeah. Do we have questions from this side? Absorbing. Let it absorb. This is a quite fascinating subject. This spiritual practice was here in the Asian region for many centuries. In Sri Lanka, this was there for many centuries, right? Even though we have no understanding why we do that, I think now it's in our DNA, right? You have to understand now here, our economy is not that much stable. In Sri Lankan economy is not stable as the American economy. Because of that economic instability, the law and order is not that much stable as like in the Western world, right? But still, people do not go and kill each other. People do not steal all the time. There are events, but it's very less. So who controls the population here? It can't be the economy. People are poor. It can't be the law and order. It should be something else. It is that spiritual thing. Sri Lankan people are spiritual. Even without the knowledge, their mindfulness muscle has developed. Because there are prescribed things for Buddhists here. In most of the Buddhist houses, every day, maybe at least one time, in certain households, in the morning and in the evening, they offer some flowers in a Buddha statue placed in the house and do chanting. Those are mindfulness techniques. They don't know that, but they just do it as like tying up the black cat. Even without knowledge, involuntarily, the mindfulness is developing. So when a Sri Lankan Buddhist or a spiritual person, when they also tend to think doing certain bad things, but their conscience is now clear. They can see it is bad. They can see something is off. That prevents them from doing that. So it's not the law, it's not the economy which controls the conscience of people here, it's the spirituality. It's a self-governance. Now can you see, now you may have seen even nowadays, now today, Bangladesh, there's a huge riot after a few months. There was even in Sri Lanka 2 years back, people toppled the government, right? Toppled the government. There was a riot which went on for months. But after toppling the government for like few hours, there were certain unsettled events. But right after, it stopped. That is the conscience works. Right? Because of the peer pressure, things happens, but then again the consciousness, the mindfulness works and people stops to it. They take a breath and they stop. And they waited for a year to have a proper election. And through an election, they did the regime change. Right. And we went through an economic crisis, but still the resilience was so strong. They were holding it. It didn't went bad like Greece. I think Greece is still struggling to recover from the economic crisis for nearly 10 years now. But we recovered, majorly we recovered within maximum 3 years, 2.5 years. That resilience, where did it come? It came from spirituality. It's a self-governance. Nobody has to ask them to be patient. That is the most important part. You understand? So it's why I invite you to start this and do an investment on this, because now today within this 60 minutes or 1.5 hours session, we only study about certain aspects, a little bit of chemistry about human mind. But as I said, it's the most sophisticated device. It has a lot of secrets. Once you develop your mindfulness gradually, you get to know many secrets about this. Those are very fascinating. I should not say this, but fascinating to a level, even you can control your mind and also you can control other people's mind. You get superpowers, right? So it is a very fascinating, very vibrant subject. If you get addicted to spirituality, you will not stop. And you don't have to go anywhere to do this. You don't have to renunciate yourself to do this. You can do it at your house, on your own armchair. And you don't have to pay a monk or a priest to do that. To perform religious rituals, yes, you do have to pay a lot to the church or to the temple. For this, free of charge. And nobody can stop you. Nobody knows that you are doing it. Because now, it's like this. We suffer in our mind, from our mind, as long as we are ignorant about these secrets. Let's say, as an example, there are 100 secrets in one's mind. If you at least uncover one secret, that particular point cannot hurt you thereafter, mentally. If you uncover 10 secrets, 10% out of those things which you do not know, that 10% will not hurt you. If you gradually increase the percentage, nothing can hurt you. And you can deal with the world. I mean, that means it doesn't mean that you are in a jungle, and deep jungle, and you have been secluded yourself from the civilization. No. You are doing your work, you are doing your businesses, you are raising children, you are raising your grandchildren. You are very active, more powerful, more energetic, more creative, peaceful within. Do you understand? So, try to introduce this when you go back day after tomorrow, is it your flight? Once you go back, even tomorrow when you wake up in the hotel, the first 30 minutes or 60 minutes, do this and see. Right? When you go back to your country, do it at home and see what happens. So that's a process you can continue throughout your life, because you are investing on yourself. At least you will get to know what the heck this is. Because you are always focused on your external things, your children, your grandchildren, your family matters. You haven't ever invested on yourself. This is a 60 minutes that you are giving to yourself. So now I think we can do a little bit of guided meditation, but I have to say this guided meditation is not based on the daily practice which I introduce. This is for emergency cases. So I should give some emergency medicine as well. No? There are certain points of life, even though we have been doing spiritual practices, but there are certain events You cannot bear this. You need a quick relief. Right? You need a painkiller. This guided meditation is a painkiller. It will improve mindfulness also, but the primary focus is to get rid of immediate relief. So in Buddha's teachings, the Buddha says to get rid of immediate mental pain, the best instrument you can use is your own body. With every unbearable emotion, without trying to get rid of that suffering, without trying to get rid of that unbearable emotion, you focus on your body. You scan your body from top of the head up to the toe, down to the toe. Now let's say you are angry, too much of anger, not a simple anger, right? Too much of anger, too much of guilt. You focus on the top of the head and see how does this part of the area responds to that particular unbearable emotion. It may be tensed, or it may be relaxed, it may be heated up, or it may be cooled. Different effects you will see. So after that, you go to the forehead and see what is happening here. Then you go to the eyebrows, you go to the eyes, you go to the nose, lips. Likewise, go starting from the topmost part, go down like this with unbearable emotions. Then you will see the quick relief. Isn't it good to have something like that also? Right. So now here the guided meditation will go like this, because since you do have no anger right now, I can't make you angry and ask you to do that. What would I ask you to do here? I will ask you to sit properly. When I say to sit properly, make sure that you are well grounded, that your feet are on the floor, right? And your face, keep it facing forward. Your chin parallel to the ground, right? Because if you start meditating like this, if you fall asleep, you will never notice. But if you keep your chin parallel to the floor, if you feel sleepy, it will tilt like this. Then you can easily recognize I am not meditating, I am sleeping, right? And then the next one, when I ask you to close your eyes, do not squeeze your eyes. Gently close your eyes. And before closing your eyes, make sure that you look around and see whether you are in a safe environment. Maybe you are sitting next to a serial killer. It is not good to close your eyes while you are sitting next to a serial killer, right? So first, look around and see whether you are safe and sound, right? Then in the guided meditation, I will ask you to do a few steps of breathing. When I ask you to inhale, you inhale. When I ask you to exhale, you exhale. When I ask you to focus on your body, when I say focus on a particular point or label the part, you go through the entire area, the surface area from your mind, right? Take a few seconds and go through the entire area, right? When I say top of the head, you focus on the area first. Mark the area. Then I will say tense. When I say tense, you mentally tense only that part. Mentally tense it. You think that you are tensing it. Hold it for few seconds until I say relax. When I say relax, you gradually relax it. Then I will move on to the next part. You do the same, repeat the same until I go to the toes. Are we clear? So that's the exercise. Right. So shall we ground ourselves, look around and see whether you're safe? If you're sitting next to your wife, be careful. So shall we start? Okay. Make sure your chin faces forward. Right. Gently close your eyes. Focus on your body. If you feel that your posture is not comfortable, rearrange it. Take a few seconds and correct your posture. Focus on your body. Relax your body. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Gently open your eyes. How was the massage? In a time where you can't find a masseur, you can self-massage. So as I said, this is a quick relief, which you can use it in situations where you cannot survive the day. In the meantime, my humble invitation is to incorporate the spiritual practice. Invest in yourself for at least 60 minutes per day. You will feel wonders thereafter. It's always better to use this more sophisticated machine after reading the user manual. So I think we have come to the end of the session. If somebody is interested in investigating into spirituality, you are most welcome, and I am readily available for your help in such cases. Feel free to watch those videos because it will enlighten you about different aspects of the mind, which will help you to have a advanced knowledge before your self-investigation about the secrets which you are about to uncover. So with that, we will wind up the session. Thank you very much for your participation, and you are most welcome to visit Sri Lanka again. And next time, maybe your investigation will be not only on the nature and the culture, on spirituality of this country. So you're welcome back again, and thank you very much for coming.